you ever seen those images? A massive aircraft carrier, the size of 3 football fields, floating somewhere in the middle of the Persian Gulf. Dozens of fighter jets on deck, thousands of sailors on board, billions of dollars of military hardware just sitting there. And you think, why? Why does the most powerful navy in the world park itself in that specific body of water, year after year, decade after decade? It's not just about Iran. It's not just about oil. It's not even just about war. It's about a faucet, the single most important faucet in the entire global economy. A strip of water so narrow you could drive across it in 30 minutes. And yet, if someone turns it off, the price of everything you buy goes up within days. Today, we're going to answer the question nobody fully explains. Why is the Persian Gulf the most militarized body of water on Earth? And what happens to your life when someone threatens to close the faucet? This is context. Picture the world's oil supply as water flowing through pipes. Most of that water, roughly a third of everything the world consumes, comes from one place, the Persian Gulf, a body of water surrounded by Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, the UAE, and Qatar, the most oil-rich region on Earth. All of it needs to get out, but there's only one pipe. At the southern tip of the Persian Gulf, where it meets the Arabian Sea, there's a narrow passage called the Strait of Hormuz, 33 miles wide at its narrowest point, with usable shipping lanes of just 2 miles in each direction. Through those 2 miles, every single day, flows 20% of all the oil traded on the entire planet. Between 17 and 21 million barrels every single day. Japan gets 84% of its oil through here, South Korea 70%, India 40%, China 30%, and while the United States produces a lot of its own oil, it still feels every tremor in this strait because oil is a global market. When prices spike here, they spike everywhere. This is the world's faucet, and the faucet has a problem. One country controls the entire northern coastline of the strait. That country is Iran. Now the aircraft carrier makes sense. The United States has maintained a near-constant naval presence in the Persian Gulf since the 1980s, not because they want war, but because they need that faucet to stay open. In 1973, Arab oil nations cut exports to the US and Europe as punishment for supporting Israel in the Yom Kippur War. Gas prices quadrupled. Americans sat in lines for miles just to fill up their tanks. The US economy went into recession, and the strait wasn't even involved. Just the threat of disruption was enough. The lesson was clear. Whoever controls the flow of oil controls the global economy, and the US was not going to let that happen again. Then in 1980, Iran and Iraq went to war, one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century. Both sides started attacking oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. The world's energy supply became a battlefield. The US Navy showed up. In 1988, in Operation Praying Mantis, a battle most Americans have never heard of, the US Navy destroyed Iranian oil platforms and sank several Iranian warships in a single day, the largest American naval battle since World War II. The message was simple. This faucet stays open, no matter what, and that's been the deal ever since. The US keeps carriers in the Gulf. The oil keeps flowing, the global economy keeps running, until someone decides to test it. Here's what makes Iran uniquely powerful in this equation. Iran doesn't need to physically block the strait to close the faucet. They just need to make it dangerous. When Iran stations missile batteries along the coastline, which they have, when Iranian fast boats start circling oil tankers, which they do, when the risk of attack becomes real enough, insurance companies stop covering ships trying to pass through. And when ships can't get insurance, they don't sail. When they don't sail, oil doesn't flow. When oil doesn't flow, prices explode. No missiles fired at tankers. No physical blockade. Just enough threat. Just enough danger. And the faucet slows to a drip. Iran learned this lesson the hard way in the 1980s, and they've been refining it ever since. From Iran's perspective, the US has surrounded them with bases, sanctions, and naval power for 40 years. The strait is their only leverage. In 2019, Iran seized a British oil tanker in the strait. Oil prices spiked 4% in a single day. The world panicked briefly, then calmed down and forgot. The faucet stayed open, but Iran had shown their hand. They know exactly how much pressure to apply. Then came February 28, 2026. US and Israeli forces launched coordinated strikes on Iranian military infrastructure, Iran's leadership, nuclear program, armed forces, all targeted in a single night. Iran did not fire missiles at American carriers. Instead, they turned toward the faucet. Iranian naval forces flooded the strait. Insurance companies stopped covering ships overnight. Commercial traffic slowed to almost nothing. The world's most important oil route was effectively shut. In January 2026, oil cost $61 a barrel. By early March, it had shattered $100, the largest oil price increase on an inflation-adjusted basis since records began in 1988. Bigger than the 1973 oil shock, bigger than the Gulf War, the biggest in modern history. By April, average US gasoline hit $4 a gallon. Diesel reached $5.60. The International Energy Agency called it the greatest global energy security challenge in history. The faucet wasn't fully closed, but it was barely open, and the whole world felt it. Then, on April 7th, President Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire, conditional on Iran reopening the strait. Iran agreed. Oil prices crashed 15% in a single day, from $117 to $95. One decision, one waterway, $22 off the price of a barrel in hours. That is what the faucet does to the world economy, and that is why there are aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf. But here's the part that never gets explained. Iran closing the strait permanently would destroy Iran. Iran's own oil exports flow through it. Their food imports come through it. Shut the faucet for good, and you cut off the hand that holds it, and Iran's economy is already collapsing. Inflation hit 68% in early 2026, meaning something that cost $100 last year costs $168 today. The Iranian rial is in freefall. Protests have erupted across all 31 provinces. So this is the paradox at the heart of the Persian Gulf. Iran holds the faucet, but they can't fully turn it off without drowning themselves. The US keeps carriers nearby, but they can't remove Iran from the map. It is a permanent standoff, and every few years the tension spikes, and the whole world feels it. So back to the original question. Why should you care about aircraft carriers in a body of water most people can't find on a map? Because oil isn't just gasoline. It's the plastic on your phone, the asphalt on your road, the fertilizer that grew your food, the packaging of every product you order online. When that faucet tightens, everything gets more expensive. Not just gas, everything. After the Ukraine shock of 2022, smaller than this, the average American household spent $5,000 extra that year on energy and everyday goods. The 2026 Hormuz crisis was bigger, faster, and it's not over. The ceasefire may hold, for now, but the underlying tensions haven't changed. The sanctions are still there. Iran's economy is still under pressure, and the faucet will be threatened again. It always is. Every time you see gas prices rise with no obvious reason, look at the Persian Gulf. There's probably a carrier there, and Iran's hand is probably close to the faucet. The Persian Gulf is the most militarized body of water on Earth for one reason: the faucet. Controlled on one side by the United States Navy, threatened on the other by Iran. That's why the carriers are there, because the world doesn't run on oil. It runs on the ability to move it, and when it stops, the world stops with it. If you want to understand the next crisis before it happens, subscribe. That's geopolitics. That's power. That's the Persian Gulf.